Hi everyone, and welcome to Endicott. Welcome to this event tonight. My name is Mary Grant, and I have been the state representative for Beverly, for those of you who don't know. So policy and public policy has certainly been a big part of my life even since then. And so I'm here tonight to introduce Bob as he introduces his work. And let me just say how I ended up being here. I am what you'd call the proverbial man on the street. I met Bob walking his dog on the street when he told me the things he was working on several years ago and asked, would I be willing to have a cup of coffee so that he could see? And would I read the draft? So here I have been reading the drafts of his work for the last couple of years. And I agreed to introduce him tonight because a couple of reasons. One of them is I am struck with his focus on this being solutions-oriented. This is not about presenting his philosophy of life. It is about addressing some of the main issues we've all been dealing with on national level, state level, local level, and doing it from a solutions perspective. He has taken how we look at economics and how we look at resources, period, in our country and kind of turned it around to look at it upside down, inside out, and every way, in many ways, that it's hard with that. We haven't looked at it in that way. And it's hard to do that sometimes. You know, when you do public policy, it was always, the joke in the house is don't be too quick with your new idea because it's like a tanker. And if you are too quick with your idea, you've jumped off the bow, but the boat keeps going. So the idea is when you have big ideas, you have got to put them out in a way that the man on the street can understand them, that there's plenty of time for people to hear it over and over, ask all the questions they have in many different ways. But why I'm here tonight is because I did read those drafts. I read them a couple of times. We've gone through some details with him. I have asked hard questions about, well, how would people perceive this in light of this? But I keep coming back to, he wrote this for regular people. He wrote this for all of us who live here, put our energy into making things be as balanced as they can be for everyone, and yet they don't come out balanced all the time. And what he's done is to try and put forth a way of looking at what our resources are that we all contribute to, that sometimes don't always come out the other end serving us as efficiently as they can. So what happens in the public realm is people are sitting there wondering why they are having such a hard time putting a roof over their head, or wondering if they're working two jobs in the same family, why they're having such a hard time supporting things that their kids need as they go through school. Simple, everyday things that used to be expected that could happen that aren't happening. So I think this is timely. I think he's putting out a way to look at something. I think we who are interested in finding solutions should be intellectually interested in this presentation. And I think that the other part that's so important is it's not a partisan policy conversation. It's a policy conversation. It is people looking at things not through your old lens or whatever lens you feel like is yours. Just look at it. Just look at it and see what fits. Puzzle over it. Ask the hard questions. But we need to do something about coming up with solutions because this tanker's going down the road. And if we don't take charge of being active in our democracy, we will have kings. I don't want kings. But I also think when you live in a democracy, it requires an energetic and active electorate that makes it their business to understand how things work, so that when you choose to vote, which is what our power is, we make choices based on understanding. So that's why I'm here tonight. I am excited that someone has spent so much time to try and look at an issue that affects so many parts of our life that I think we need to puzzle over. I can't, if you asked me outside, a man on the street, I'm just reminding you, to explain how this all works, I can't. But I keep grasping a little bit of each part of this every time I read another area. So I hope that you will do the same. And I also hope that you, as you see fit, will see it your mission to pass the things on that are meaningful to you, so that we're all starting to have a conversation about what can work and why things that go on now just don't seem to work, even though people are giving it their best shot. So Bob, thank you for doing this, for come up here, talk to us all, and tell us all of these things that you've been working on for so long. Thank you.
Mary, thank you. That was awesome, and I'm humbled. And I just want to say that the conversations that I've had with you have been absolutely invaluable. I don't know if you even remember this. We stood in the Crosby's parking lot for over 2 hours one day talking about this years ago, and it was February. And, and I thought, I've got one. I'm going to trick her into helping me. Okay, first of all, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I'm going to try to make this fun. I have a question, though. You all know I'm going to talk about economics, right? Okay. Saturday night before Halloween, and you're listening to some guy talk about economics. Did any of you think this would ever happen in your lifetime? I'm thinking no, but I hope you get a nice treat. There we go. All right. Now this is going to be interesting. So am I messing up the webcam stuff? Okay. So, oh, my CrossFit people all left. I've been walking around CrossFit doing this drill, and I want to get that in again. I've been going to CrossFit, right? That sounds cool, right? Thank you, yes. But, the CrossFit people, I've been walking around with a 10-pound weight, and they were probably wondering, what is he doing? I'm ready, right? This isn't 10 pounds. So here's the deal. There's steps here. If this gets boring, just remember, I could fall. And you're going to want to see that. All right, so here we go. This is about economics, about a new way of doing economics. This guy is a hero of mine. I doubt you've heard of him. Maybe you have. Ludwig Wittgenstein. I like to quote him. In particular, I absolutely love this quote. And I'm telling you this now as a warning. So I'm going to try to tell this story in a way that you will find at least somewhat entertaining. And please laugh. If something is obviously a joke, it's being recorded and I need your help. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So American Buyout is a proposal. It is a book, and in the book there is a proposal. And the proposal is about a new way to manage the economy. It's really nothing more than that. It's a proposal for how to manage the economy. So just to be clear on this, when I say economy, I mean the system by which we produce stuff and distribute it. Physical goods and services. And hopefully, I don't know, I used to teach and I thought I'd better define terms, but hopefully everyone is cool with this and this isn't surprising anyone. All right. You might be wondering, why do we need to change our economy? Why do we need to change the way we run our economy? Well, the problem is the world is broken. And if you don't believe that, I'm guessing you believe that, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here. But if you have internet access, you probably know that at least parts of the world are broken. And I'm here to tell you the whole thing's broken. And it's Halloween, and I am trying to scare you. It's probably worse than anything you imagine. So in the United States of America, we have rampant poverty. Again, all of this is taken from the internet. I captured, these are all screenshots, so if you want to fact check me in real time, you can. You've probably seen these. You have probably talked to people about these things. Half of all Americans struggle on a monthly basis. You've probably heard horrifying statistics about how people can't go more than a week on what they have saved up. So if there is a health problem, if there's an unexpected expense, they're in trouble. Americans can't afford education. I don't know how many people here have student debt. I'm not going to ask anyone to raise their hand, but it's a big problem. It's over $1 trillion. It's growing. There are people in America who are hungry. You probably know people in Beverly that are hungry. And Beverly is not a poor city. It is not somewhere you would expect to find hungry people. We're destroying the environment. And for at least you younger people, this is maybe the biggest concern you have. Does it matter what the economy is doing if we can't live on this planet? It doesn't really matter. And what may have caught your eye, I don't know how many of you read the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, the Fed doesn't, the people who manage our economy don't know what to do now. The tools that they have used historically to manage our economy are no longer working. All right, I mentioned it was Halloween, right? So are you scared yet? And you guys you probably have seen things like this. You probably have more of your own that you could put up there. But here's broken. It took a while. It took 3 tries. Things are getting worse. And they're going to get really, really bad. So here's some things that should really frighten you if you're not scared yet. And if you've dozed off, I am right on the edge of this top step. All right. In the next 10 years, 50% of jobs in the United States will be lost to automation, to technology in general. 95% of US citizens will live in poverty within 10 years. That's my statistic. I didn't grab that anywhere. And if you want to discuss that, I will tell you where that number came from. But I didn't just make it up. There's a basis for that number. We won't be able to afford health care. The environment will be destroyed. But I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter, because World War III will distract us from all these problems. How can we fix this? And this is a frustrating thing. This has been driving me nuts for 36 years. I got in an argument 36 years ago, which is where all of this came from. These problems shouldn't exist. We produce enough stuff where no one should be hungry. And to me, it's just an absurdity. I'm a mathematician. Professionally, I do financial modeling. I tell companies how to run their business more efficiently. I do lots of transportation network modeling, a lot of distribution modeling. This is ridiculous that people are hungry. And it took me a while to figure out what was going on. So I can tell you, just relax, it's not a problem. Fixing the economy is remarkably, ridiculously easy. You have to think differently. So that's what tonight is about. I'm going to try to show you how to think differently. And if you're wondering why you haven't, it's because people told you to think wrongly, to think in a wrong way. Well, you get the idea. All right. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to start by imagining the simplest solution you can. And I credit Mary Grant for this. If you've not had the pleasure of talking to Mary Grant, she's absolutely brilliant. I find her captivating, and she's been telling me, make it simple. Break it down to the simplest thing. Make it as simple as you possibly can, and then make it simpler. So we're going to do a little experiment here. We're going to do an experiment in simplicity. But you get 2 tries, and then we're going to go live. So we're going to do 2 exercises. to practice up, and then we're gonna actually save the world. All right, and this is audience participation. So if you actually want to offer a solution or an explanation, please do so. What is the simplest explanation that you can give for this picture?
2 dots. Polar bear in a snowstorm.
I like 2 dots. Polar bear in a snowstorm. Casper.
I said nostrils, but
Polar bears. I think of this as a polar bear in a snowstorm. But 2 dots is maybe even better. Okay, here's another one. You get the idea here, right? You get the theme of where this is going. How about a simple explanation for this one? Lenny, Paul was close on
I
this.
said Jeffrey Dahmer.
No, it's a worm crawling over a razor blade. But it's simple, right? That's a simple explanation. All right, here we're going live. Now we're going to solve the world. It's Halloween, come on. All right, 1 foot is off the edge here. Yeah, okay, here we go. We're going to go live now. We're now going to actually solve the world's problems. I'm serious about this. Does anyone want to, we are being filmed live and this is going on YouTube. I probably should have told you that. We'll edit it out if you really want, yeah. So, does anyone want to take a shot at this? Does anyone? No? All right. So, there's only one joke about economics, and I'm going to risk telling it. An economist, chemical engineer, and a physicist are on a desert island. And they have 1 can of food, and they're in danger of starving. So the physicist says, I know what to do. I will build a fire, and I will calculate the exact temperature that will cause this can of food to pop open and not spill any. That was a chemical engineer. The physicist says, no, I'll hit it with a rock. I'll calculate the exact force I need to hit it so that I'll open the can and we won't spill any food. And the economist looks at them and says, you guys are idiots. Assume a can opener. That's the only economist joke I know of. All right. So here's how I'm going to solve the problem. All right. I'm going to assume a big pile of money. All right. So here's a big pile of money. All right. Good so far. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that money and I'm going to use it to solve all these problems. So I can solve this education problem with money. I can solve the hungry thing with money. I can solve people who don't have enough money to live on. I just give them money. So all of these problems can be solved with my big pile of money. Right? It's that simple. That's all we have to do.
Can we go now?
We're done. Mic drop. No. Okay. Let's put some numbers on these arrows. So I don't know if that's correct or not, but I'm pretty sure with $1 trillion, I can provide everyone with health care in the United States. I'm pretty sure that for $1 million, I can cover all the educational needs. For $3 trillion, I can deal with all the stuff related to poverty, people not making enough money. So if you just add up those last 3 that came in, so that's $5 trillion. That sounds like a lot of money, right? It's not. And that's where we're going to get to. We're going to get to this notion of where does this money come from? Oh, right. Then the Fed. Who cares? If they don't have tools to solve these problems, we don't care because there aren't any problems anymore. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, where's the bar? I swear to God, he said there was an open bar, or I wouldn't be here. Others of you are thinking, it can't possibly be that easy. All right, well, turns out it is. Fixing the broken world is really that easy. All right, well, here comes the big reveal. Now that I've disclosed that we're going on YouTube, I won't use names unless people want to call out and seek recognition for their insightful comments. But one individual who is sitting here in the second row was very upset because it took, 140 pages to get to the big reveal. And he said, why wouldn't you just put that in the first page? Well, in order to get a movie made, you can't, you got to put the reveal at the end of the book. Yeah, you don't show the shark in the first reel. You wait till the end. Well, this isn't a movie, so now I'm going to do the big reveal. You ready? This is great. Here's the big reveal. So in the movie, Matt Damon will be starring, and Matt Damon says, Professor Smith, there's a mistake in the equation. And Professor Smith, played by Tom Hanks, says, no. The end. See, that's why you have to put it at page 140. Now the movie's over and people are leaving the theater. Okay, here's the deal. Let's go back to our little picture here. This is how easy this is. This big pile of money is called market surplus. Now, I've got another quote coming up, but if you leave here remembering nothing other than market surplus, that will be good. And if you want to argue about it, if you want to say there's no such thing, that's okay. Because you will very quickly realize that there is a thing called market surplus. And it's massive. After that, everything else just falls into place. Everything else is easy. In the book, and then I'll keep talking here, because we have this place till what? We have another 4 hours, right? So I'm going to... So the distribution part I call vested economics. It's a method for taking this market surplus and distributing it to people. All right. So Walt Kosmowski deserves credit for this, and he's on radio, TV stuff all the time, so I don't think will mind showing up on YouTube. Walt reads the book, and then he paraphrases it back to me in probably 2 sentences, better than I ever said it to anyone. And I was very impressed. And he says, well, so why don't we just do this? And then, this is paraphrasing, Walt actually said it better than this, and I wish I'd had it recorded, and I wish I wrote it down. But then he says, it's like, duh, right? It's like, we just do this. There's no reason not to. And there isn't. There isn't a reason not to do this. All right. So we're back to Ludwig Wittgenstein, and now I'm going to go into a little more detail. I'm going to give you the specifics. I'm going to show you some numbers, and I'm going to show you an actual process for how this can be done. And I'm going to do this as quickly as I can, but I will warn you again, there are numbers coming. And I'm going to tell you why we don't already do this. And it's rather heartbreaking why we don't already do this. So I call this national vesting, and it's a horrible, horrible name, because every time I say national vesting, somebody says, oh, so it's socialism. It's not socialism. It's not communism. It's not any ism that's out there today. National vesting is a new way to run an economy, kind of. So instead, I wish I'd called it, we should just do this, duh. You know, I wish I'd had that insight years ago. So it's a new economic paradigm. A lot of this is repetitious, so I'm going to skip through it. National vesting will solve pretty much every economic problem that you can think of. And a couple I went by real quick, I should have dwelt on ever so slightly. Tax reduction. You do not have to increase anyone's taxes with national vesting. Taxes will go down with national vesting. This isn't a transfer program. We're not taking money from people who have it and give it to people who don't. We're running the economy more efficiently. We're taking this big pile of stuff that is produced but not consumed. We're monetizing it and distributing it. It's nowhere near as simple as I think it is in my head, but that's really what is involved. All right, let me get back to this and show you an experiment. I'm trying to explain why we don't do this already. I'm going to show you a photograph. This is a photograph of a famous economist. It's from like somewhere in the 1880s. He has a disease I can't pronounce. It's what is commonly known as elephantitis. He never appeared publicly. He would use, other individuals would go and push his work and lecture on his work. And he's not a very good looking fellow. It's hideous. So I know what you're thinking, right now, or I know some of what you're thinking. You might be thinking some of the following things. A poor guy. Did he have a family? Was he supported? Was he loved? Did he have friends? Could he go out in public? You're probably thinking, wait, I may have heard of this guy. Was his name Merritt something? Didn't Michael Jackson buy him or something? There's probably something, vague memory that you've heard of this guy. Well, everything you know about that photograph is wrong. Absolutely everything about that photograph is wrong. And it's wrong because I misled you. I told you I made an incorrect statement. It's not a photograph of a man, it's a photograph of a puppy. All right, let's look at it again. That's a puppy, that's not a man. If you turn it sideways, you can see the puppy. And if you zoom in, it's not a man at all, it's a puppy. Why did you think it was a man to begin with? Because I told you. Now, I could have been honestly incorrect. I deceived you deliberately to make a point. The reason you think we can't do vesting, the reason you think we can't do a vested economy is because somebody told you that. An economist who supports socialism or an existing paradigm told you we can't do that. We can't do what he's talking about, when in fact you absolutely can. So let's talk about how you actually do this. I'm going to show you some things that are a wee bit controversial. You don't need to. It's that distorted perspective. You perceive that the economy has certain things going on because newspapers tell you, and televisions tell you, and radios tell you, and people like me tell you. But the difference between me and everyone else is that I'm right. So I'm going to give you some examples. You're told on a fairly, if you are not the Unabomber in a shed somewhere in Colorado mountains, you must have heard some of these things. So for example, you must have heard that the U.S. trade, the federal budget is terrible. It's a huge deficit. And you've probably heard that we have these terrible trade imbalances. And you've probably heard that high-paying jobs are fleeing to foreign markets. We can't afford universal, we can't afford this. All of this is wrong. Every one of those statements is wrong. Here's the reality. Everything you think you know about economics is wrong. And in the book, there is a very specific explanation for why that is. About 100 years ago, thereabouts, the actual error may have occurred before 1930, but in 1930 it was written down. An error was made in a mathematical formula. And this is all in the book, and I will not tell you what the formula was. You have to buy the book to find out. Now get this, the equation has two variables and one symbol. That's it. And it's wrong. And Michaela, we'll edit it on YouTube if you want to. So I was setting up Michaela, I was explaining the situation, and I looked at her and I said, so do you know what the mistake was? And she nailed it. We were at Hale Street, it was crowded, people screaming, and she got it right in like a third of a second. And then I said, well, how would you fix it? She nailed it again. This is not a hard problem, people. This is like third grade math. And I go back to my opening slide about Ludwig Wittgenstein, because if you think about it, that's kind of funny. The entire economy of the world is run, it's based on an equation with two variables and one symbol, and the symbol is wrong. And because of that, we have poverty. We have people who don't have health care. We can't afford to educate our children because of a mistake in this ridiculously simple equation. All right, well, what does this mean? The economy of the United States is generating a massive surplus. It's what I call the market surplus. In the book, I will argue that it's 15 trillion, but don't tell anyone outside this room. Oh, I forgot that YouTube thing. It's more than that. But just for the sake of argument, I'm going to tell you it's $15 trillion. So you can cut it in half and you still have $7.5 trillion. And if you go back to that slide I showed earlier where I only needed $5 trillion to solve all those problems, I got a bunch of trillions left. So we'll get to what we'll do with that money in just a moment. The U.S., and this one drives me nuts, the U.S. has an absolutely massive trade surplus. And again, that one's a little harder to explain. It involves ratios, but read the book. It's captivating. And that's how we're going to get Tom Hanks, by the way. Is that chapter is what we're going to... I didn't say that I'll be funny. I just said we're going to tell jokes. We can afford free education. We can afford health care. All these things we think we can't afford, we can. There's absolutely no reason for us to have income tax. We have enough market surplus that we do not need to tax people's incomes. You might want to tax people for various things. There might be a reason to do that. ABOC doesn't care. So the consortium that we're forming doesn't care. We provide the money. The government is still run by Congress. So if the people decide to tax something, that's up to them. They don't need to. We have a massive amount of market surplus, so the taxes just aren't needed. Very simply, market surplus is a function of production that is not consumed. You can look around. You can find it everywhere. I've got pictures of it here in just a moment. Where does it come from? It comes from technology. Market surplus caused the Great Depression in the 1930s. Market surplus caused the Great Recession of 2009 or 10, or however they describe it, 2008 through 2009. All of that was caused by technology. It was caused by automation, advances in productivity technology. We now make more stuff than we can consume. And the result of this, the result of automation, there is no livable wage that most humans can afford to live on. That's redundant. There's no livable wage that allows people to compete with technology for employment. And it's going to get worse. Whatever you've heard about AI, artificial intelligence is accelerating. It's not slowing down, it's not flatlining. What's going to happen in the next 10 years is going to result in all the menial labor that people hate to do anyway. All of that's going to go away. But then there won't be any jobs. What will people do to earn money? You can't even sweep a floor anymore. You can't compete with a Roomba. I don't know if you know this, but Roomba's got a thing coming out that'll mow your yard. It washes windows. And go look at the cover of Time magazine. I've got it here, but here's some pictures of market surplus. If you don't know what market surplus is, I'll talk to you about it after, but I'll give you some examples. In food alone, $1 trillion a year is thrown out around the world. So the market surplus in food alone is massive. The milk is my favorite one because I've done a lot of work for dairy farmers around the world. I've done a lot of consulting, and they just keep making milk and nobody wants it. Here's some other examples that you've probably heard of. Most clothing manufacturers destroy about half of their production every year. They used to give it away, but now the people that they used to give it to don't want it because they have so much. So this was a big deal, I think, in the UK when somebody figured out they were destroying this clothing. But it's all of them. It's not just Burberry. Everyone does it. Nike, all clothing manufacturers destroy clothing. Cartier destroys hundreds of millions of dollars in watches every year. Everyone who makes anything overproduces it. But on top of that, services overwhelm physical production. So there are 10 internet companies with combined revenue of $500 million. Only like 1.4% of their production is consumed. So from those 10 companies alone generate $40 trillion in market surplus every year. I put this in for certain people. I didn't want anyone to feel left out. Market surplus is going to hit every industry. Healthcare. This is a very recent Time magazine, by the way. I think it might be the current Time magazine. So if you're in healthcare, you're going to have to deal with automation. If you're in the legal world, you're going to have to deal with automation. So LegalZoom is growing extraordinarily fast. And it's automating a lot of the very simple legal tasks. And it doesn't matter. Anything you do, all of it's getting automated. All right, so here are the effects of market surplus. I think you get the idea. Bad things happen because of market surplus. And this is like the greatest irony of all time. We make so much stuff, we feel poor. It's funny, right? I mean, you have to laugh, and then you got to go cry because World War II, all these horrible things happen. But at some level, if you think about it, it's this dark Halloweenish humor, right? We make so much stuff, we drive the price of labor down, and we feel poor. And with automation, it's going to get really bad. All right, so here comes some numbers. Oh, let's do that one again. That's a fun one. World War II was caused by the Great Depression. Unemployment peaked at 25%. All right? What's going to happen when unemployment hits 50%? Well, this isn't a hypothetical question. This question has a basis in reality. So for the book, there's a bigger version of this chart in the book. I went through and I found all these studies on what automation will do. So check out the top two. By 2030, the United States is going to lose 73 million jobs. And look at who did the study. It's McKinsey. It wasn't me. It was a reputable, probably it's one of the best consulting firms in the world. It's one of the most credible consulting firms in the world. This was a multi-year study, and they concluded we're going to lose 73 million jobs in the US, 800 million globally. And none of the others really disagree, but look at the names. Look at the people that are doing these studies. The Bank of England, Oxford, PwC is PricewaterhouseCoopers, Forrester is another extremely, I'm looking at people who know these things, they're a very reputable organization. Deloitte is another very reputable organization, and this is only part of my list. This list goes on and on. Jobs are being lost all over, and the reason why is because we're so productive. So seriously, doesn't it make sense? Take all that extra production, and let's figure out a way to use it. Let's start distributing it. All right. So the solution is really simple. Take this market surplus and let's distribute it. All right, so here we go. This is the proposal, and people actually laugh. They think this is a joke. This is not a joke. We can do this. Everything in this proposal is doable. I started with $100,000 cash just because I'm trying to get your attention. We can give everyone in the United States $100 cash. Sorry, $100,000 cash. We can afford to pay a minimum wage of $20 an hour. And I just want to point out, employers aren't required to do that. The supplemental funding comes from the market surplus. So we're not requiring employers to pay people more. Free healthcare, free education, reduced income taxes, the elimination of debt, student debt, federal debt, all of that will go away. All of this can be done with vested economics. Okay. The market surplus is massive. I want to get to showing you exactly how this is done. How? How do you do this? All right, well, I got a plan. I know how to do this. So please note there's a copyright and there's a registered trademark and there's patent pending. So if any of you try to use this, you owe me money. All right. No, that's another attention getter. All right, here's step one. I'm going to show you how to do this. Don't jump. All right, step one. Step one is exactly the way things work today. People have a job, they work, their employer owns whatever they produce, and they get paid. This is the world today. So you have a job, you do your job, you get paid. You might have a minimum wage job, you get minimum wage. So again, I skipped ahead there. So employers pay their workers, workers produce something, the company owns that, the employer owns that, and they can do with it whatever they want. They can sell it, they can put it in inventory, it doesn't matter. We're not changing any of that. This is a market economy, there's no restriction on business of any kind. Okay, step 3, ABOC, which is the American Buyout Consortium. Think of that as a placeholder for now, and I'm going to come back to this in just a moment. ABOC buys the market surplus from each individual worker. So if you're a worker, if you're an employee, you get 2 paychecks. Your employer gives you whatever they can to get you to work for them. ABOC gives you another distribution out of the market surplus. This can be implemented in less than 3 months. If we wanted to do this, all the mechanisms exist so that we could implement this in a matter of months. This doesn't take years to implement. ABOC then takes ownership of that market surplus. Unused milk, whatever it is that is not consumed, ABOC owns. And ABOC then does a very simple transaction, it's all done electronically, where ABOC swaps that market surplus with the Fed, the Federal Reserve, the Central Bank of the United States, and ABOC gets cash. So ABOC now has the cash to fund education, healthcare, debt relief, tax relief, everything I named before, supplemental payments to people, and I'm going to show you some more numbers, I'm sorry, but that's how simple it is. Everything you see here can be implemented in less than 3 months. Actually, it can probably be implemented in a week. We already have mechanisms where the US government sends people checks. And if you were part of that student loan scam where they were told to refund money and they were charged anyway, the US government turned it around in a week and paid people. We can do this in less than 3 months. 3 months is conservative just because governments move slowly. Everything up here can be done. Let me talk about ABOC. What is ABOC? So ABOC is, we call it the American Buyout Consortium. It's an initiative of the organization that we're promoting out front, the Center for National Investing. It's a placeholder. Think of it as a placeholder. At one point, when I started doing this, Stephen Colbert had that parody show, and I was trying to make it sound like we were really going to buy the country, and realistically, no, that's not going to happen. The federal government of the United States should do this. But we're not waiting. This is nonpartisan. It doesn't matter if you are a liberal, conservative, it doesn't matter. This is a mechanism to make our economy work better. It doesn't matter what your political leaning is. This will make our economy work better. So I have this idea that American Buyout Consortium is open to all Americans. And by definition, it's part of the government at that point. If all Americans own it, that's kind of what the government is, right? It's a placeholder. If the US government, if clear-minded individuals thought they wanted to do this, this could be done in a matter of weeks. So for now, just think of ABOC as a placeholder. But in reality, it really should be the government. And it should run like the Federal Reserve, but we can talk about that later. All right, let me show you what's going to happen. These are kind of fun numbers. I like numbers. This is great. Charts of numbers, woohoo! All right, so the left column, this shows what you earn today. This shows your hourly wage today. And we just make an assumption, 2,000 hours. Just pretend you work 2,000 hours per year. So you multiply the first column by 2,000, you get your annual salary in column 2. The third column is what you get out of, oh, sorry, I should have been doing this. So this is what you get paid by your employer. This is what you get out of the market surplus. So if you're making $7.25, you get $12.75 additional money from the market surplus. And the net effect is you make, let's go back. You make $40,000 a year total. And if you look, there's some fountain effect is a known economic phenomenon, and I make fun of John Maynard Keynes, but he's the guy who figured out fountain effects, and on that issue he was right. And you read the book, you'll understand why I'm hesitating to admit he was right about something. All right, so here's your total income with national vesting. So check this out. This is your percent increase in income. Everybody's income goes up. And I just stopped. It keeps going. I just ran out of space at 250,000. Everybody in the United States will see their annual income go up in a vested economy, without exception. Oh wait, I'm sorry, Garth Brooks. Forgot about Garth Brooks. Every one of you is underpaid. Garth Brooks is not, he did not sneak in, right? No Garth Brooks. If you're not Garth Brooks, you are underpaid. And it's not a dig at Garth Brooks. I want Garth Brooks to call me is the thing. I have this, I think we're going to be buds, but I don't know. We'll see. All right. A couple of things that should be pointed out. The lower wage level, you get a bigger percentage increase. So if you look way over to the right, if you're earning minimum wage, you're going to see a 175 or whatever that number is, 6% wage increase. So you get a bigger percentage increase, but if you're affluent, if you're making a lot of money, you'll get a bigger dollar. A little more money, maybe $20 is too low. Maybe we should pay people $30 an hour. Maybe we should all have a rafting trip on the Colorado River every year. There's all kinds of things you can do with $2 trillion. If you join the consortium, you get to help us decide which of those things we're going to do. But I do, in all seriousness, I do want to point out that for $2 trillion a year, we can make a big impact on environmental issues, a lot of issues. You can solve a lot of problems with $2 trillion. All right. Just about to the end. I know there are skeptics. You can't do this, right? You're thinking we can't do this. But remember the puppy. You thought it was not a puppy because I told you. If you think we can't do this, it's because somebody is telling you that. I guarantee you we can do this. And I will bet any amount of money, $2 trillion or more, that we can do this. And I know that because we're already doing it. The mechanisms for doing this already exist, and we've been doing them for decades around the world. It's called quantitative easing. So quantitative easing is a mechanism that gained popularity in the late 90s in Japan. In Japan, they have been doing this for over 20 years. So all of that six-step thing with the green circle ellipse things and the arrows, that's already being done. With a couple of caveats? Yeah, all right. So in quantitative easing, it's a simple mechanism where the government, the Treasury Department, wants money because they want to fund something. They want to fund a stimulus program, cash for clunkers, or a new aircraft carrier, or a wall. So what they do is they go out to the market and they borrow money. They sell notes, they sell bonds to the market. But in quantitative easing, the buyer is the central bank, which is essentially part of the US government. So the US government is selling debt to itself to fund spending programs. That is exactly what we're doing with a vested economy. Only in a vested economy, we have mechanisms in place where you can track what you're doing and manage it more effectively. So people will complain about quantitative easing. They'll say all kinds of bad things about quantitative easing. And by the way, this is happening all over the world. Quantitative easing is being done in every major economy in the world. European Union, Australia, New Zealand, Japan. Oh, that's all up there, sorry.
In the US.
And the US, yes. And There are some problems with it. So people worry that it's wasteful, it's inefficient, because it's the government, so therefore by definition it's wasteful and inefficient. There's corruption, again, synonymous with government, and it's not going to solve problems that we want solved. So the difference between, think of it this way, the difference between quantitative easing and a vested economy is that in a vested economy, you're giving the market surplus to the people who produced it. That's the big difference. But all of this is already happening. Trillions of dollars a year are already these transactions are already happening. All right, yeah. All right. This is propaganda. Oh, sorry. You don't need to hear all this again. Yeah, all right. We solve every problem there is. I think probably bad skin, everything, yeah. Because that'd go to the healthcare thing. Yeah, sure, yeah, we do everything. We solve it all. All right. So, again, we need help. And I'm a mathematician. I'm something other than a marketing person, and a lot of this I don't really know how to do. I'm not very good at it. We need help. It's a simple message. If you think this was difficult, you should have heard it before Mary Grant stepped in. It was really hard, because I want to go right to those equations. Like, Mary, check this out. This equation is wrong. Isn't that crazy? Bob, no. I can't explain that to anyone, Bob. All right, so here's what we need. All right, these, I think the answer to all these questions is pretty obvious. If all we could do was eradicate poverty, would it be worth it? Would moving to a vested economy be worth it in order to eradicate poverty? Yeah. Guaranteed livable wage, free health care. Now keep in mind, with the free health care, nobody's taxes go up. The reason that people will tell you we're not doing free health care now is because it would increase taxes. Well, if we eliminate that problem, shouldn't we do health care for everybody? Doesn't it make sense? All right, the answer to all these is pretty obvious. Yes, 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 yes. All right, so here's some things that we need help with. Please tell people about this. Even if you don't believe me, even if you don't believe that the market surplus is $15 trillion, argue with me about it. Because I can show you it's at least $1 trillion. I have hard data on at least $1 trillion. I can show you many articles about how much clothing gets burned. Every segment of the economy has market surplus. So then we can have an argument about how big it is. But it's there. It's a real thing. And we can take it, and we can use it to solve problems. Well, how do I know that? Because we're already doing it. We're doing it with quantitative easing. We're already doing this. All right. So go argue with your friends and neighbors and I don't know, get everyone talking about this. I think if you can think of a simpler way to explain this, please let me know. I would love to hear that. Any public event, if you want me to, I'll show up. I will be happy if you put a microphone in my hand. You should just turn this thing off and then we all stop. But I will be happy. Anything I can do to help support this, I will happily do. If you want to provide content, if you want to help publish materials, if you want to produce your own online webinars, anything you can do, any of these things that you can do, please do. Please help any way you can. All right, I fear I've gone way over. All right, let me just zoom through this. Oh, yeah, that was me. All right, so the Center for National Investing is a 501c3. It's a real nonprofit. It's a media nonprofit. We're trying to raise money to create educational materials that we can use to educate the public and policymakers about vested economics. It's a very simple solution to a lot of problems. And even if somebody doesn't like the way we do it, if they can come up with a better way to use the money or a better way to implement it, that's great. But we need to start somewhere. It's hard to edit white space. So this is our proposal. And if you got a better one, we'd love to hear it. And we have a bunch of questions here at the end, and I am, yeah. So people have sent these questions in. I don't know if you registered or not. You had an opportunity to send in questions. The risk factor just got lower, so you can nap now. But I have to read the questions. All right, question one, it sounds great, but can it really work? Yes, it's already being done. Oh, I hate this question. No, it is not socialism. It's not at all like socialism. Vested economics is the exact opposite of socialism. Think of socialism as the government controlling your money. That's what socialism is. And today, the US government controls the market surplus. And what we're trying to do is take the market surplus and distribute it to you. Vested economics is the exact opposite of socialism. You know, duh, I don't know what to say. This could have been figured out a long time ago. We should have been doing this years ago. I don't know how, I can't find any, I've tried to tell people about this so that I wouldn't have to. And I don't know, I cannot believe that somebody else didn't already think of this. I don't know why this isn't being done. There's no reason this should not be done. Yeah, this is a problem. This is why we have ABOC. So the idea with ABOC is we're just trying to create enough pressure that something gets done quickly, at least before 2030. We would like to, there's no reason this shouldn't be done. It will only take a few months of effort. So we're trying to get as many people as we can. We tell people 10 million. We want 10 million people to join ABOC across the country so that we can put pressure on the government to implement this. This is serious. We are in Robert Reich-like emulation mode. We are going to try to produce educational materials, films, videos. If you've seen our website with my lovely lettering, we're doing everything we can to produce educational materials. And again, if you know Garth Brooks, have him call me. He'll write a song. Okay. When you get into AI, when you get into the world of AI, okay, think of it this way. How many people have Netflix? Wait, you don't need Netflix. How many people have internet access? Do you ever watch anything on YouTube? Okay, so if you want to know what I mean by production is infinite, go watch every video on YouTube and then come back and ask me what infinite production is. I'll wait. Yes, fountain effect is a real thing. John Maynard Keynes studied it. Economies don't trickle down. That's utter nonsense. And there's mathematical reasons for it, and it's known economies don't trickle down. They fountain up. And the reason is, at the lower income levels, for every dollar you earn, you spend over $1. And at the higher income levels, for every dollar you earn, you spend less than $1. So the fountain effect is what happens when lower income groups get more money. They spend more than they earn. And it fountains up to people who make more income. And that's been known for decades. That's a known effect. All right. No, inflation will not rise. We are currently in a deflationary environment, and the government is lying to you about inflation. All of the inflation in the economy today is manufactured by the government. And they do that because monetary policy will not work if there's no inflation. And this goes back to the notion of managing the market surplus and the distribution. So the reason you have to work to get a distribution of market surplus is to ensure that something's being produced so you can buy something. So we control inflation by making you produce something in order to get your market surplus distribution. So no, this will not create inflation. It's very similar, but modern monetary theory needs control mechanisms that you have in a vested economy that in modern MMT you don't have. But it's a similar conceptual thing for those of you who know what modern monetary theory is. Oh, I know this one. Volunteer at centerfornationalinvesting.org. Volunteer at centerfornationalinvesting.org. Yes, I got one right. Yes. Yes, everything that I just described, yes, I want the U.S. to do this. Okay. This one hurts. All right. Oh, I know. I invented integrated business planning. I really did. And I've been doing financial modeling for, oh my God, since 1975. I've built thousands of financial models. I've modeled the entire world economy. People pay me, by the way, to do that. So no, I'm not an economist. And actually, I got a better answer. No, I'm not an economist. That's why you should trust me. There you go. Yeah, that's right. That's a book quote. I should have remembered that one. Okay, I got to work on that answer. No, the Great Depression was not caused by greedy bankers, and the Great Recession was not caused by greedy bankers. Both of them were caused by technology, excess production. And I'm happy to argue about that with anyone. All right, I find that very fun. That's okay. This is an excellent question. You remember that bit at the beginning where you're all going to get 100 grand? That's real. So, for example, if you can't work, you're still going to get 100 grand. And other people call that basic income. But I don't want to call it basic income because that is polarizing and it sounds like a political thing. That's kind of what it is. But also, no existing program is going to be eliminated or changed. Vested economics is not a replacement for anything. Social Security will not be replaced. Anything known as welfare will not be replaced. All of those things will remain. Vested economics is simply layered on top of it. So if you're currently benefiting from any program that supports disabled or people who can't work, elderly, all of those programs will continue and be more fully funded. I think I said that right. They'll have better funding. So ABOC is trying to focus on economic efficiency. We're not moralizing or getting into ethical discussions of any kind. We are providing, ABOC's intent is to provide funding so that programs that address disabled workers and anyone who can't work, there will be programs that will be funded to do that. Okay, yes. You have, in order to get your supplemental salary, you have to have a job. So vested economics, yeah, okay, there's that 100,000 that goes to everybody, but to get your ongoing supplemental payments, you have to have a job. And again, the point there is to balance the money available to spend on stuff with stuff available to buy. That's too technical for this time of night. No, all of these continue. There's no, Medicare will continue, all these things will continue, they'll just be better funded. Social Security will continue. Now, the government may decide that those programs are stupid or unnecessary or get rid of them, but there's no requirement for them to go away under vested economics. I'm hoping I don't have to read these questions out loud. Oh, I would love to debate an economist. Paul? Where's Paul? Oh, not tonight. Not tonight. We need.
Yeah, I gotta read the book.
Yeah, you got to read the book, and we need libations, right? Yeah, there you go. Yes, I have. National investing has been reviewed by numerous economists. Some love it. I'm only going to mention one. I won't mention him by name, but one is really infuriating. He is an extremely well-known economist in the professional world. He was the chief economist for the Koch brothers. He sees nothing wrong with recessions, and he will tell you that with a straight face. It drives me nuts. And I don't know if he's just pushing my buttons, just trying to get a rise out of me, but he thinks, no, recessions are good. Gets rid of inefficiency. All right, imagine you're getting on an airplane, all right? So historically, you have a recession where the economy crashes every 2 to maybe 8 years. That's why they think we're due for one. Imagine you're getting on an airplane and the pilot tells you, yeah, airplane crashes are normal. Gravitational cycles, right? So, I don't know, I give this one a 40% chance of making it. Would you get on that airplane? You wouldn't get on that airplane. This just drives me nuts. It's like economists, everything just failed. We had a depression, we had a recession. Don't you think you ought to fix something? Don't you think there's something wrong with your theory? And they don't. They think that's fine. And they say, well, that's normal. No, it's stupid. Recessions are stupid. Anyway, yes, I've talked to many economists, and some support it, some don't. And Paul, I really hope you're not a fan of recessions. All right, end of questions. I know it's late. Thank you for staying. I really appreciate it. And I also want to thank a lot of you that have put up with me for many years talking about this. I really do appreciate that.
I think there are questions in the audience.
I will be happy to take additional questions.
I have a mic that you-
Thanks, Bob. In your the ABOC labor and the central bank, how do you value the in each of those transactions? How do you value the surplus in those when you buy it from labor? And you said the real value is paid to ABOC from the Fed.
I'm trying to get back to the slide. That's a great question, and I have a fabulous answer for it. It's more fabulous if
Which slide is it?
the diagram of the 6-step. Yeah. All right, so in the book, there is a schedule. So vested economics is based on a new theory of economics called Newtonian economics. Existing economic theory is wrong. Oh man, I love this stuff, but I can't believe any of you are going to like this. What time is it? And everyone's sober? Oh, this is terrible. Okay. There's a schedule in the book that equates your vesting level with how much your minimum wage is. So there's a base level of $20 an hour, and then it moves up. So if you have a college degree, your minimum wage goes up. If you earn more than the minimum wage, your supplemental payment is reduced 2 for 1. So for every $2 you earn, you lose $1. The vesting level is it's determined. It's a critical issue. It's why you need Newtonian economics.
But the value you're paying out, distributing there, is based upon the difference between what you sell to the central bank versus what you purchase from labor.
Correct.
So how are those values established?
So one of the problems with existing economic theory is there's nothing called an invariant. They don't have a 0 point. So what we introduce with Newtonian economics is a 0 point, an invariant. From that 0 point, you can calculate anybody's contribution to market surplus. Okay? So then if we have the computing power, we can add up everybody's individually. But in general, you're just aggregating the difference between every individual's value contribution and what they were paid.
How do you agree on it?
Well, we don't need to agree. I'm just going to tell you what it is. No, in all seriousness, you can. There are mathematical methods for determining that if you have a 0 point, if you have an invariant, you can determine it. And the problem with existing economic theory is there's no invariant like that, so you can't make that determination. Was that at all satisfactory?
That's the skeptical. That's where I'm skeptical.
Well, here's the plan, okay? And I'm serious about this. This is the plan. So I can show you mathematically that the market surplus is at least 15 trillion. And there are various ways you can calculate that, and they're all 15 trillion, at least. So I'm confident in that number. You can literally add it up. You can go through every sector of the US economy, add up the market surplus for that sector, and it exceeds 15 trillion.
Labor will agree to that.
Well, what I did in the book is I said, all right, let's avoid an argument with George. Let's cut it in half. So I don't want to argue with anybody about whether it's 15 trillion or 16 trillion or 14.8 trillion. So I said, well, assume it's half of that. Assume it's 7.5 trillion. Then we're only going to take a percentage of that. So I hedged in a way. The $20 per hour minimum thing is very conservative. Y'all are worth at least $20 an hour. Way more than that. So there will be some contention if you want to calculate the exact number. But I'm going to say it's at least 15 trillion. So to avoid arguments, let's divide it in half. Let's just work with, if all we have is 7.5 trillion, we can solve a lot of problems with 7.5 trillion. But you're absolutely right. It will be a contentious discussion. Stacy?
Yeah, so I'm another man on the street. And so I have a question about three, because in the beginning, you were talking about surplus milk and surplus watches,
Right.
surplus production. Well, the employers own that stuff. So how does this happen through labor?
Well, once you take your excess milk and dump it on the ground, you really don't own it anymore. Anything in inventory, the employer owns. You're absolutely correct. Anything in market surplus is discarded. It's the burnt clothing. It's the things that have been produced that are not consumed. So what the employer owns, the employer still owns. They can put it in inventory, they can keep it. There's no argument about that. Market surplus is simply the production that is not consumed and that spoils. It's never consumed ever. It's destroyed, or it's a service that is fungible and never gets consumed. Did that help? A little, okay. So food that's not consumed, that's just lost. Okay, here, maybe this will help. There doesn't need to be a physical movement of unconsumed production to the central bank. The central bank doesn't want your milk. They don't want the excess milk. It's only a ledger entry. Because the central bank needs to know how much money can we put into the economy without creating inflation. So we want to measure the market surplus so the central bank knows what they can pay people. It's just a ledger entry. But all that destroyed stuff, that's the only thing that we're tallying up. Anything that the employer wants to hold in inventory for whatever purpose they have in mind, they're free to do that. They're just running their business however they see fit.
And secondly, on your chart with the percentage of increase in wage, it goes down and then it comes up again. The fountain effect.
Yeah. Yeah, and that actually that's a real thing. And if the chart were to continue, it curves like this. So people who make a lot of money, it gets like to 26%. If you're a million, if you're that 1%, you get a big pay increase, percentage-wise.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I know.
People on the bottom get a big pay increase too, though.
Well, yeah, everybody wins. I mean, if ABOC, I'm only about the economics of this. If other people want to say that's not fair, that's a whole different discussion. I'm simply trying to create an economy that works so that no one is poor. Everyone gets food. Everyone gets health care. And then if other people want to have an argument about what's ethically and morally right, that needs to be a different discussion. That's not what none of this is about ethics or morality. This is about creating an efficient economy that works for everybody.
Yeah, and people on the bottom, you're going from 14,000 to 40,000. That's a huge
Can you still
jump.
afford health care at 40,000? Because we're not giving health care away.
No, health care is included. ABOC's providing health care.
ABOC's going to provide health care out of the profits that they make.
Yeah.
We're giving stuff away.
Yeah.
Okay.
But only the good stuff.
Is this something that perhaps, like, is this national or nothing? You know, you started with the healthcare system.
You need a central bank. You need a central bank. You need the entity that controls the currency. That's why I called it national vesting. People interpret that to mean socialism, and really what I mean is you need a central bank. It has to be done at the national level. John,
Bob, could this model be set up in a small country first?
oh yeah, absolutely,
As an experiment?
absolutely. Well, they tried this in New Jersey in 1974. Seriously, Milton Friedman and Richard Nixon tried this, and I don't know, I thought, it looked to me like it was working, but they discontinued it. They called it negative income tax, but it's effectively this. Yeah, look it up. You got phones. Milton Friedman, yes. Richard Nixon, 1974, New Jersey. Fact check me. Sorry.
Now, are you handing out the checks tonight for the $100,000?
I put yours on your chair. Is it not there?
No, it wasn't there, so I just wanted to...
Mary.
It was a-
I'd say look around, Shan. I think somebody's got your check. Noreen, you had a question?
Mine's not really about this particular thing, but like currently, when we talk about, I guess my question is like the Department of Agriculture now pays farmers
Yes.
not to create surplus.
Yes.
And like that exists right now, right? And
Yes.
I always say, well, there's so many people who don't naturally create, but they're paying people to not create surplus. And I know that happens there, but it also happens in other markets as well.
It happens in almost every market. Definitely housing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, like, that's an existing practice.
Yes.
We pay farmers to not grow food.
So, yeah.
Or to ship it off.
But just so you know, there are people who will disagree with that interpretation of the program, but that is an effect that it will have. And I have a question. Do you know when that started? When?
Before World? I said after
It started in the Great Depression.
the Great Depression.
So the U.S. government, so the question was, aren't we kind of already doing this where the U.S. government is sort of absorbing surplus in various industries? Yes, that's happening today. Very inefficient. It's a bad way to do it. And the word corruption comes to mind, but that's somewhat disparaging, and I don't know if anybody here is a milk farmer, so I'm going to be a little careful about what I say. But there are like, what, 1 billion pounds of cheese somewhere in Wisconsin. What?
They're in caves.
Yeah, they're in caves.
They're
So,
in caves too, they're loaded with cheese.
yeah, so
Butter out there.
Yeah, cheese, but,
so the paradigm, the reason they do that is they have this model, this mathematical model, it's just horribly wrong, where they're trying to balance supply and demand. So the thought is, if we can increase demand or if we can reduce supply, that will increase wages. But here's the problem. I don't want to pull it up, but production is infinite. We cannot increase demand enough to absorb everything we produce. And since Noreen brought this up, blame her, there's a little secret involved in this that you should be aware of so that when you go and argue with people on the street, you know how to address this question. Why can't you increase demand enough to absorb supply? Because it's not just about money, it's about time. Depending on who you look at, you know, what you read, the US economy is now 70 to 90% service-based. Service means time. So in order for you to consume movies, in order for you to consume Netflix, you have to have time. In order for you to go golfing, you have to have time. It doesn't matter what the interest rate is at the Fed. If you don't have enough time to go golfing, you're not going golfing. So the reason that this problem is going to get so bad between now and 2030 is because we've only started to automate the service industry. Only now have we meaningfully gone after 70% of the US economy. And okay, this is, I don't really want this to go on YouTube, but We did a project recently. It took 3 months to do the project, and it resulted in 5 people losing their jobs. We automated their jobs. It took us 3 months, one programmer, 3 months, to eliminate permanently 5 full-time jobs. That was done on software. Okay, this is a thumb drive. So you could say, if I had to distribute that software on this thumb drive, I don't know, this costs like $1. So I could say my cost of distribution is $1. Except I have internet. I can take that program we wrote that displaced 5 people at one company, and I can sell it to about 500 other companies. And I don't even need to pay $1 to do it. I just distribute it through the internet. So 5 times 500 people are going to lose jobs to this software. And it took us 3 months. It took one person 3 months to write that program.
Pretty smart guy.
Yeah. But think about Napster. Napster's in the book. Napster, how many people remember Napster? Napster put over 100,000 people out of work. And it was a 19-year-old kid who did it. Okay, I'm sorry. I can't remember, did he make money? He got sued.
He made money in the beginning, but it was all paper, and he lost it all by the end.
Let's flip the coin a little bit. Because Noreen brought up the agricultural thing. You started talking about dairies. But one of the values that this brings up, right? You always hear the story about the peaches rotting on the tree in Georgia because there's nobody to pick them. Okay? Now, I got a mechanism. Farmer can pay what he can pay to get the peaches picked.
That's right.
ABOC, ABOC is going to pick up the surplus. So now, peach picker becomes a livable,
That's right.
a theoretically livable wage.
By 2030, the minimum wage should be at least $40 an hour, $80,000 a year. You can be a crossing guard making $80,000 a year in today's dollars.
Right.
Well, no, because there is deflation. Deflation will increase, so you're going to benefit from deflation. So but yeah, Shan's exactly right. All of the jobs that are currently difficult to fill, they're not difficult to fill because no one can do the work. They're difficult to fill because they don't pay a livable wage. So if you're now able to say, hey, you can do these jobs and you'll earn a livable wage, you'll find people who will do that. Oh, you're gonna say something really, really. No, I'm.
It's get out the sad trombone, like the womp womp, Debbie Downer.
Do you need the mic for that?
So what's at the core of all environmental degradation is overproduction and overconsumption. So how does this fix that?
The basis for environmental.
More and more stuff and making more and more stuff and,
No, but
enabling that peach picker to go out and buy a new washing machine.
No, but you won't. You won't need to do that anymore. And we might need to take this offline, but the basis.
That didn't take long.
No, this is we're trying to. Everyone keeps telling me you got to simplify this, and it's like, well, you can't simplify it beyond environmental destruction. That's a critical area. The reason we're destroying the environment is because of economic desperation. If you eliminate the economic desperation, we will not destroy the environment.
I disagree with that statement.
Drinks are on you. I mean, you. We'll continue this discussion.
Yes, we will.
Yes, Brad.
Just to follow up on that. I mean, doesn't the whole program depend upon a constant or increasing amount of surplus?
No.
Why? Because if you run out of the surplus, ABOC goes bankrupt.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. Yes.
Okay, so can we agree that surplus in general is an inefficient bad thing?
Surplus in general creates problems if not managed correctly. But think about it. Do we want a shortage of fresh water? Wouldn't you rather have a surplus of fresh water?
Agreed. So for example, I mean, you say that the technology is increasing surplus infinitesimally.
Yes.
But that's not true in every area. So for example, in the airlines. So in the 1970s and 80s, half the planes were empty.
Right.
Most of the time.
Right.
When was
Yep.
the last time anybody got onto a plane with like more than a couple of empty seats? Technology's made it much more efficient, eliminated all of the surplus, and now you can't get on standby anyway.
Right.
So that was good. That's a good thing, eliminating the surplus. But this model depends upon a constant or increasing amount of surplus, which I think in general, as she pointed out,
Yes.
is kind of a bad thing.
If the surplus is not managed correctly, it can become a very bad thing. But the surplus I'm talking about here in terms of market surplus, the word market was chosen carefully. It's an aggregate. So the surplus that we're talking about here is across all markets. There will always be shortages of key things. That's what inflation is for. So anytime you see inflation, it's a pain point. It's a kidney stone. It's an abscess that you need to do something, go to your doctor and take care of this inflation. So if airplane seat prices start going up, I guarantee you they will make more airplane seats. But what's happening is there is no shortage of food. This is the one that just drives me nuts. There is no shortage of food, but people are going hungry. If you start there, if you start with that premise and you ask yourself, well, what do we do about that? Here, it's hard to edit white space, so here's a plan. Here's a suggestion. Here's a proposal for what we do about that. Healthcare is another one. A huge amount of healthcare, not all of it, but a huge amount of healthcare is going to be automated. And it's already being automated. And a lot of, like in the pharmaceutical industry, you know, there are things we could do that would make it more efficient, but people should not be suffering because they can't afford their diabetes medicine. It's stupid. It is a stupid way to run an economy. But your airplane, but I will completely agree with you, there are things that there'll be shortages of. And that's why we have inflation. Maddie.
Do you see a way that this model could be applied to the other markets, like the global energy market?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's called ABOC for a reason, American buyout. So then we're going to go EBOC, ABOC. I don't know what to do about Asia.
Please tell me this one that's EWOC.
Well, if you play with the acronym or the abbreviation, there's certain continents you want to be careful with. Yeah, just trust me. You'll do it in your heads. You'll figure it out. But yes, all of this can be done globally. That's the goal, by the way. Oh, by the way, this is fun. You'll love this one. Whatever country does this first wins. Whoever does this first wins. Think about it. Seriously, Ronald Reagan brought down the Iron Curtain through economic warfare. Economic warfare is going to win all major conflicts. So if we start using our market surplus, if we monetize our market surplus, we're going to double the size of our economy within 3 weeks. Or what did I say, 3 months? Very quickly. We will double the size of our economy very quickly. And we will win. We'll just buy everyone. There won't be fighting. We'll just buy everyone. We lost the timer. We probably ran out of time.
We lost it, but I think we're...
I thank you for coming. I really appreciate this. Oh, it's not my mic. The mic is probably very expensive, or I would drop it.
The pen dropped because it'll cost money.
Thank you again. There's probably still food out there. Yeah, and I'm happy to sign stuff. Or the signed books are going for huge bucks on eBay. You should probably invest for the future. You should probably buy like thousands.